It varies. I mean, a big complex film like All That Jazz, I probably had 650,000 feet. I forget how many hours that is on film. Um, on network, very little film. Um, and All That Jazz I was working on for over a year. Network, about 3 months, maybe 4 months. And I finished my cut of Network in 5 days, and we put it into sound effects editing 1 week later. So that was very quick. The film I just left was 10 and a half months, and we never got anywhere with it. So I left. I couldn't stand it anymore. So it varies. I know now so much film is shot, well, film is a funny term, but so much is shot digitally, and directors don't stop the camera, particularly in television. So I have no idea how a television editor can keep up with all of that material they get. It's changing. I didn't want to really learn digital editing. I had grown up editing on the upright moviola, which was a technology that started in 1922 and really hadn't changed very much except for the addition of sound for 50, 60 years. But by the time I realized in the middle 1990s that if I didn't learn how to edit digitally, I would probably never work again. And for the most part, that would have been true. So I was offered the opportunity to learn digital editing, and I frankly liked it a great deal. I miss sometimes the physical properties of film, because I always thought of film as almost a sculptural medium that you could sort of bend and twist and push into different shapes. And that's gone, but I think I cut exactly the same way. But I certainly have more opportunities to change my mind, and the directors. Well, for me, I like to think of myself as a storyteller, but uh, the performances, I think, are the most important thing to hold the story and then to make the performances the best I can possibly make them. Because people think that that an actor comes on and he does his lines and he goes home, and it's not that simple. There are many reasons that performances need work to make them fit into the storytelling. But that's really about it, the storytelling. And of course, cinematography is important. Um, Sitting here with so many cameramen, and I've worked with wonderful, wonderful cameramen in my life. I've been very fortunate. But sitting here with so many and listening to the details of what goes into it is astounding. Just astounding how much they care, really care. I love that. Well, and so do editors. When I first started, and it was a time of great budgetary differences then, I mean, there was some flexibility. I read the script, and then I usually start somewhere around 2 weeks before the shooting. In the case of Sidney Lumet, Sidney would rehearse the actors for 2 weeks, and I would go and sit in with the actors and Sidney like a stage play. There was a table reading, and then he'd block out the room with tape, and then we'd get furniture into the room. So it was a real theatrical rehearsal, and people knew where to stand, knew where to move. Now I start usually 2 days before, a day before, to make sure that I have the equipment working. And often it's not working until 2 days later, but that luxury of time is gone, and I think it hurts. I mean, the directors who are able to work with their actors and get things prepared and get the emotions working, I think that's a better way to go. But we don't do that very much. I think, yeah, I mean, certainly for the editor, I don't get to see very much that's happening until it shows up in my editing room the day after the shoot. Well, a lot of editors on low-budget movies are asked to be their own assistant. Most will agree to do that, but only after the dailies, because that takes quite a bit of time to prepare the dailies. But even then, there's so much work for an assistant to do, and people don't want to pay for it. So editors find themselves doing music editing, doing sound effects editing on a rough scale, sometimes doing mixing well enough to go into a theater, at least for a screening. I did on my last film, twice. Um, and soon, I believe editors will be color timing, because I know producers don't like to pay for the cameraman to come back and do color timing. So I don't know what's going to happen then. It's just a tremendous amount of time. And, you know, when you're young, it's exciting. But then you start having a family and kids, and you might want to spend a little time at home, and it's very hard. It's not enough to be paid sometimes for the loss of time, important time. Not that much. Again, we used to have dailies every night, and now the last, oh my, probably the last 10 years, I've almost never had dailies. We make a disc. I look at the dailies on my Avid, and and sometimes I'll look at them in a screening room. But I give discs to the director, I give discs to the cameraman, I give discs to script supervisor. And what we miss is the communication that we had every night. Sometimes we'd go out to dinner afterwards and discuss the material. Sometimes just being there and feeling what was going on in the room made a big difference. And that's almost completely gone. It's very hard to shoot a movie. You put in a long day, and nobody wants to come to dailies anymore. But I think cameramen miss it, and I think editors I know miss it, and directors should miss it. I mean, editors work alone for the most part, at least at the beginning of a production. And then at the end, when you're finished with the cut, the director comes in and you sit for sometimes a very long time. And I like that part. I like the give and take of ideas. But here at a festival like this, there's an enormous sharing of knowledge. And it's terrific. It's really great. I wish we had one for editing.